Okay, I want to start off by giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahushai, Ba'ashim, Rakah, Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who teacheth the Bible in 100% truth. And Shalom to the hopeful elect of the 12 tribes of Israel, especially the 144,000, who consist of the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans in the land of the Americas, as well as the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners living amongst the other nations. Shalom to you. Okay, today, as you can see on the screen, I've got a YouTube short from Apostle Tahar's channel, which is what it says there, what is the mark? And this is a short video of 3i Atlas. It says 3i Atlas is here. What I'll do, I'll keep that on, there's no sound, but what I'll do, I'll keep that, it will keep obviously playing there. And obviously those of you that know the truth of the Bible, you understand, you see what this is, you understand what it is. The reason why I'm doing this video today is for one person in particular. We've all been, those of you that know the truth, and those of you that have become accustomed to the true understanding of the Bible, and it's something that lives within your mind constantly because you're watching prophecy. Obviously, that's part of the Bible. Those of you similar situation to myself, whatever point, however long you've known this truth, whether it's a short period of time or a longer period of time, decades or a few years or decades, we've all been through similar situations where you come to the truth, you understand what the Bible's really explaining, you understand it in depth, and then that can only change the way you see the world. And it's like if you're looking for truth, for example, then you're going to expect it to be something that really confounds you. People search for different religions, for example, and they'll change religions, and ultimately what they're doing is they're searching for a way to find out if there is a Most High. They believe there must be a Most High. That's why they're going from religion to religion. But what they're ultimately doing is searching for some sort of answer, and the answer would be the truth. And then when you receive that truth, you would expect it to have a profound effect on you, and you'd say, "Oh, this is what I found." And so we've all been through that similar situation. But then you have what we call people of the world, who basically they know of the Bible, they've heard of it, but they have no idea what's actually in there, what's actually being described, the message that's coming out, and the whole connection. We're talking about the whole thing from front to back, from Genesis to Revelation. So people in that category, they're obviously people in the world. When we first came to this truth, people of the world because you're in the world yourself. And then obviously finding out what you find out, it's profound. It has a big effect on you. So over the course of time, you then have this completely different viewpoint of the world to what you had before that. And that's pretty much where we all are. And what that does, see, I'm describing it to obviously build you up to a particular point as to why I'm making the video. And obviously, so yeah, you come to the truth. Your eyes are open. You see the world in a completely different light. But then you have all these friends, family, so on and so forth, girlfriend, whatever you want to call it. And it's gonna go off in a second. Hang on. I think, yeah. So you come to the truth, and all these people that you knew in the world, all of a sudden, it becomes very difficult to have the same type of relationship that you had with them before, because they still see the world in the way that you used to. But now you found out something, You've seen something, it's hard to unsee it. So once, now it's hard for you to unsee it. It's hard for you to then behave in a way that you used to behave. But those people are still behaving that way, and they've always behaved that way. Whatever it is, whatever aspect of life it is all various different aspects. One example is with food. You go out with your family, you eat different types of food all the time. All of a sudden, you come to the truth, and now you have this dietary law that you wish to sort of try to oblige by, and then you follow it the best you can, and that makes you then stop wanting to eat certain foods. And then people in your family will say, "Well, how come you don't eat this? You don't eat that? You've changed." So there's this whole process. Yahushua, the one that ignorantly called Jesus, he told Nicodemus that you have to be born again. And obviously, Nicodemus is talking about being born, from the womb, which is obviously not possible. And what Yahushua is really talking about is being born again in the mind. And that is because you then learn something, which then you've seen something, now you can't unsee it. You're born again because now you have a completely different outset, a different change, a different outlook on life, a mindset, and it completely changes you. So, and I had that, and I've explained it before. And where some people have that maybe over the course of a period of time, I did obviously over the course of the period of time. The way you deal with people, relationships in the world, it changes. That takes time, obviously, over the course of a few months, a year, a couple of years, whatever. You start to sort of see people less and less, and you move in a different way, if you like. But then, when you actually find out the truth, that's when it starts to work. So you could find out, for example, someone stops you and says, "Oh, you're a Hebrew Israelite, and this is what the Bible's really saying." And then it starts from there. The light bulb goes off. Now that doesn't mean much because all you've done is taken the first crumb of off the cake of knowledge. So you've got this whole cake, but all you've really received at that point is a crumb. And the more you eat, the more you bite, the more you take in. Remember, you're supposed to Ezekiel. You're supposed to eat this roll and digest it, so that it goes into your bowels. The roll is the scriptures. And then obviously that takes time. Over the course of time, your mindset changes, and then the way you're dealing with people changes. That takes, like I say, months or years for that process to happen. But for me, the mindset change was quite instant. And I've explained before, because I found out through the visitation of an angel that came, and it arrived at me, and then it showed me certain things in the past. It showed me certain thing in the future. It showed me a period of, like, say 3,000-4,000 years, and certain events happening in between it. So obviously, from my mindset, people have this saying, "Oh, I went to bed and woke up a different person." Well, I didn't even go to bed. I was working on a night shift. It's midnight when it happened, and then when this angelic being left my presence, I was then confounded, and I had to sit there for the next 7 hours at work dealing with the shift. But in my brain, I'm sitting there thinking, well, this changes everything because of what I saw, whatever else. I'm not going to get into that now. So anyway, we've all been through that particular process, or somewhere roundabout, and more or less. And then for me, for example, certain people that I knew in the world, what we call them in the world, and they're your friends. They've been your friends a long time, but now you've got this whole different mindset. Maybe these people believe in the Bible. Maybe they believe in the Most High. But what it is, because you've got a completely different understanding of the scriptures, it's hard because you've got this in your mind, but they've got something else. So you then realize, okay, there's no issue. I don't have a problem with this person. But what it is, I can't really have myself around these people because they're not really ready for what you've got to say. And like I say, those of you that understand the scriptures, you've obviously, you understand prophecy. You've obviously gone into a deeper level. much deeper level than having the first crumb. You've had a few slices, nearly half the cake, three quarters of the cake, nearly all the cake, depending on where you're at. But for me, so I had a couple of friends. You tell them, look, you're a Hebrew Israelite, blah blah blah, but they don't really bite. Like when you're fishing, we're fishers of men. That's what the prophets are. The those that go out and preach this word. Ultimately you're fishers of men, and you're fishing for the elect men. The Book of Revelation talks about the elect. So those are the men that you're fishing for, men and women, with this word. So you go out, you tell people bits of knowledge or truth, or maybe you're preaching on the street and they come by, and then ultimately what you're doing is throwing out bait to see who bites it and who comes back in. Ultimately this is not for like any monetary gain. This is not to ask people to come to this particular place. You don't get asked anything. You just get told the truth. So that's another thing about it. So with that, with myself, told a few people, and then what's happened is they don't really like buy it. So you say, okay, well, I told him, and it didn't really register, or ultimately the Most High didn't put the Spirit on them to understand what you're saying. So you leave it, as the scriptures tell you. You shake your dust off your feet, and you bounce. So obviously I've been through that. Like I say, many other people have been through that, and then fast forward up to where we are today. It's the 31st of October 2025. Those of you that understand prophecy in depth, you understand exactly where we are. We're in Jacob's trouble. We're at the very beginning. We've been saying this for like about a year now, that we're in Jacob's trouble. And we've told you multiple times that Donald Trump is the last president. Maybe Donald Trump will die, and maybe he'll get replaced by his vice president. But that administration is spoken of in the scriptures. Peace and safety, make America great again. So we're in the time where the Most High is making a visitation to the earth through prophecy, through judgment. That's ultimately what it is. You have the day of the Lord, which is a great day of judgment, where the people of the world, society, they get, the worldwide society, they get judged for whatever it is that they've partook in. And so we're at this time now, and lately you've seen like a lot of people, they've had dreams. You've seen lots of videos where people have been having dreams and particular visions. And so this is where you kind of fast forward up into my particular story. And a few days ago, I had a missed call on my phone. And it was a friend, but obviously this particular person I haven't spoke to for about, I don't know, 3 years, maybe, I don't know. I can't really remember, if I'm honest. Could be 3 years, could be 2 years, could be 4 years. But I haven't spoke to them for a while. And so like I'd missed a call when it was like half an hour ago. So I rang back. And then he said, oh, I didn't actually ring you. But then he looked on his phone and he realized, oh yeah, I must have pocket dialed you. So here it is. So in my mind, straight away, the situation, I'm thinking, okay, it's the Spirit that's put us here. But the thing is, with this particular person, he thinks like that as well. Even though he doesn't understand the scriptures, he believes in the Most High, and then he sees certain particular signs. So even he said to me, well, if we're now talking on the phone by this accident, then there's a reason why we're supposed to be talking. So then you get into your normal stuff, how you doing? I haven't seen you for a while, blah 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 blah. And then he told me he had a dream a few days ago or a few weeks ago or something. And so this is the reason why I'm doing the video. He's had a dream. I've pretty much told him. So what he had in the dream, he said that he was somewhere, I don't know, can't remember where he said. He said he's somewhere and he's with a group of people. And he said that the group of people are panicky, and they're panicking, and they're sort of like nervous. It's like they're sort of like besides themselves. But he can't really understand what the problem is. And he's inside, he's amongst this group of people. And then he says, up in the sky, are ships. It's exactly what he said to me. They're ships. I said, okay. And then he said, yeah. So then another person came along, and this person basically said, you're not supposed to be with this group of people. You should be with that group of people over there. And as if there was some other group of people that he should be with. And he said that, it was like a dream, but he said it felt like a vision. And then that was it. He said he woke up. So obviously for me, instantly, that's quite easy to answer. It's pretty much speaking of the day of the Lord, because you've been told something that you're with a group of people, but you shouldn't be with that group of people. You should be with a different group of people. And the vision, the dream, showed you ships in the sky. So obviously from there, like obviously got talking, explaining X, Y, and Z, and it got me thinking. You see, this is where we're at. So we're we're at the door. The Most High is making his visitation. The things that have been happening, is definitely about to do something. We've had all these different signs in the skies, with the sun, the moon, so-called UFOs. You've got prophecy is screaming. If you understand prophecy, then you all you got to do is spend 10 minutes looking through the news of the world today and what's going on, and it's prophecy is screaming at you. So it's not a surprise now. You see, and this is the thing. This is where like really you're supposed to just let the spirit do its thing. So you're not supposed to go out there and harass people and force them and say this, that, and the other. The Most High has His timing for every person and every particular thing. So you might even know someone, and you say, "Yeah, I'm gonna break down this truth to them," and it doesn't register. And you're trying and you're trying and you're fighting it, and you end up arguing. But really, you're just wasting your time because you're not in control. This is all controlled by a higher power spirit. This is what we tell you. When we come out and tell you we speak in the name of the Most High, He gives us the authority to do that. And people say, "Well, how's that? How's that?" But we have the information. So who else is He giving it to? And then with that, if the Most High is in control, the Spirit. So then, who are we then to decide who can make it and who can't? So you can't then. It doesn't rely on you personally to be able to have. You've got to get this person to wake up. Why can't they understand it? If you can understand everything else, I can understand. Why can't you understand this? You get yourself into a lot of trouble. You're supposed to let the Spirit guide everything. And so, like I say, I've told this person a few years back, probably like 5, 6 years ago, like, look, you're a Hebrew Israelite, blah blah blah, whatever else. And so you just let the Most High do His thing. So all this time now has gone by. We've happened to speak by accident, and then one of the first things he said to me is basically, "I've had this dream," and I've told him straight away. I've given you the, he was like, "Oh, he obviously, I don't think he realized saw his dream in the way that I'd obviously explained it to him, but to me it was quite clear." And so then, like I say, it leads me up to making this particular video. There's many things in the Bible, obviously, but one thing is so-called UFOs. So you can go through the scriptures and you pull out various scriptures. This is Revelation chapter 1 and 7. It says, "Behold, He cometh with clouds." So the He is Yahushai, the one they ignorantly called Jesus. His true name is Yahushai. And you have the day of the Lord. And it says here, "Behold, He cometh with clouds." So the clouds is pretty much code word for what the people of the world called UFOs. See, the Bible's written in code, so certain things can't just be written out blatantly, because if the message was that clear, it would then be accessible to everyone, and then people would realize what it says, and certain people would then get rid of it, and you wouldn't even get this far. But see, the Most High has built this in a very special way. He built this book in coded language, and he's written it in certain formats. You've got parables and allegories, so on and so forth. And so what it does, it makes the book a mystery. You then have millions or billions of people around the world who pick up the book, but yet they've all got a different interpretation, but they all think they're right. And this is the Most High's way of having his book out there. He's made, that's his book, and he can just have it out there in the world, in the billions, anywhere on any shelf, any person you want it, have it. But you still can't get into it. You still can't understand it unless he gives you the spirit to determine the algorithms and then be able to understand it. So when you do understand it, I'm not going to pull up all the scriptures now, but this is one example. For example, behold, he cometh with clouds. It says, and every eye shall see him. It says, and they also which pierced him. It says, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. It says, even so, amen. So everybody on the earth is going to see Yahushua arrive. It says it right there. Every eye shall see him. And then it's telling you he cometh with clouds. Like I say, that's a code word. Psalm 68:17 says, the chariots of the Most High are 20,000. It says, even thousands of angels. It says, the Lord is among them, as in Sinai in the holy place. So the chariots are referring to these angelic vehicles, the things that the people of the world call UFOs. You see, the powers that be know what they are, and that's why what they do is they create confusion, and then they give you things like aliens and little green men and all this other stuff, and it's pretty much to throw you off the scent. And so then some people will even say, "Oh, you're a conspiracy nut," but ultimately, at some point, all will be revealed. But they give you subliminal messages through the movies. You have things like Independence Day, an invasion in the sky, thousands of vehicles floating about in the sky. And when these prophets spoke of these things in ancient times, they didn't have the language that we have today to use to describe things in that way. So a chariot is a vehicle of travel, but these are of the Most High. So there are 20,000, even thousands of angels. So these are angelic vehicles. It says the Lord is among them. It says as in Sinai, as in the holy place. So you go back to Revelation 1:7. Behold, he cometh with clouds. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Go down to verse 52. This is Apostle Paul speaking. Says, in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. So this is on the day of the Lord. It says, for the trumpet shall sound. It says, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. So this is speaking of. You go to the book of Revelation, chapter 18, verse 4. It says, and I heard another voice from heaven, saying, come out of her, my people. It says that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not her plagues. So you've got the elect, the chosen children, the elect of the children of Israel. So you have the Most High's chosen nation, the nation of Israel, and amongst that there is a remnant that will be saved, referred to as the elect. And so on the day of the Lord, just before the main destruction takes place of this particular kingdom, you've got the elect get beamed up into a so-called UFO. It says, in the moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. And that change refers to, once you get beamed up, a change of that physical body into a spiritual body. So, that's just a few verses. I mean, there's plenty more. But, when you see these so-called UFOs in the sky, what you're actually seeing are angelic vehicles of the Most High, vehicles that angels travel around in. And obviously the chief angel, being the Most High Son, Yahushua. So that's the type of vehicle he's going to be returning on. So again, if you're new to the truth, you may not have heard of Free Eye Atlas. It's something that's out there at the minute that's been spotted traveling around, and obviously this is what we're expecting on the day of the Lord. When you look at this particular short here, and you look at this Three Eye Atlas, you see the pulsation. It's like a light, and it pulsates from front to back. To me, that's what tells me that's a chariot. You could question it. Many people say it's different things. It looks like a living organism that, like a little caterpillar. And so people might try and say, oh, it's something like that. But just go back to that quickly. You see the pulsar light. See that bit there, that tells me that's a chariot. Because I've spoken of that before. If you see something with that light kind of moving around, then it's probably a chariot. But yeah, like I say, obviously, because my friend, obviously, it's been a long time. He spoke to me the other day. He said he had this particular dream, stroke vision, and he mentioned ships. So obviously, like I said, I was making this video so he can I'll leave the link for this in the description box, and I'll also leave the link. I mean, you've got GMS Word of Life, pretty much the same thing, or you've got GMS Truth Be Told, and they will provide videos of chariots, angelic vehicles. You can go to the book of Ezekiel. I think it's chapter 1. He describes seeing a UFO. He describes it as a mountain in the sky, and he describes the beings that come off the particular vehicle. You can go to 2 Kings chapter 2, and you read a story of Elisha and Elijah, and they're basically traveling, walking by foot. Elijah says, at some point I'm going to have to go. Cut a long story short, a UFO appears in the sky and beams up Elijah by tractor beam. And, Elisha's quite shocked at the time. And I think in the chapter, it describes the tractor beam as a whirlwind. So, you have what you would call a UFO, and then a tractor beam, the beam of light that may be beaming somebody up. We would refer that to as, say, the chariots of Israel. In 2 Kings chapter 2, chariots of Israel, that's what they're named as. And like I say, the tractor beam would be described as a whirlwind. You'd have to understand the coding. But like I say, there's many different places you can go to in the scriptures to get proof of that. And then you can go to channels like this, and you'll see many different sightings of different types of vehicles in the sky. These are all vehicles of the Most High, angelic vehicles. And there's more and more being spotted now. When you look at a map, for example, of where the sightings are, they're mainly around the world. You look at a world map of all the sightings of UFOs, they're really concentrated around Babylon the Great, aka America. And that's because America is where they will arrive. Well, they'll arrive all around the world, so everybody will see them, but America's the place that they're going to start to shoot. It's the place it's it's a lake of fire, so it's the main sort of center point of the destruction. Obviously, there'll be World War III in the Levant. You have angelic vehicles down there that will be, getting involved. Scriptures talk about these nations fighting back against these particular angels in fear of their life, but yet still fighting, and obviously they'll be destroyed. I think it's the book of Habakkuk mentions beams of light, these vehicles emitting beams of light, and these beams of light would pretty much vaporize. If like a human being, you would be hit by a beam of light, it would pretty much remove all moisture from your body. This concentrated laser beam pretty much would remove, say, all water content from your body, and then once you do that, what's left? Just a pile of dust. So these are the things. This Bible talks of a bit, a book of lamentation and woe. So, people, they believe in Jesus, they talk about love, they talk about helping you to get a good job and a good wife and sorting your life out. But really, what this book is telling you to be wary pretty much of the day of the Lord, because it's going to be a day like never been seen. And the time leading up to it that we're just about to get into is like the time never been seen. So, for example, where, like I say, that my friend, I've known him for years, haven't really spoke to him much since I've been in the truth. I told him he was an Hebrew Israelite, what, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and but now you see the Most High decides to do something with him. Is he a member of the elect? I don't know, but he had the vision. The Most High gave him the vision, told him he was with the wrong group of people, and so all I can do for him is just show him what's really in the book. Where we are, what's going on, and obviously the more he takes it in, and the more he'll understand. So that's one aspect. One other thing I'll go into just quickly before I go is Deuteronomy chapter 18. See, in life you have certain particular burning questions. Life answers, answers to life, if you like. At some point in your some stage in your life, at some point, you wonder to yourself, how do you get a woman? How do I get this woman to get into my bed, for example? And then as a man, young man, you'll work that out, and you'll see what people do. You'll see how things work, and you'll work it out. And there's a secret to it. But once you learn that secret, it's not a secret. And when you get to a certain age, that information just becomes, you just blasé about it, because it's not even that deep anymore. But when you're young, you're a teenager, it's deep. But it's one of those questions. There's a question to life. How do you get rich? Is there a Most High? And that's quite an important question. Like I say, you've got many people who search around different religions, but especially our own people. You'll find our own people mixing in with Christianity, the Roman Catholic Church. They'll mix in with Rastafarianism. They'll mix in with Islam. And they're all over the place. And ultimately, what you're witnessing is a godly people with a godly spirit. They know they're trying to find something. They're trying to find home, but they actually have no clue as to where to find it. And the reason is because none of these religions have the answer. The only thing that has the answer is the Bible. But then the Bible, like I say, is read by billions, yet only a handful of people really, when you compare the percentages around the world, can really give you the true answers. And so how do you work it out? Well, this is Deuteronomy 18 will tell you. You're looking, there's many people that will tell you, oh, you come to this religion and you get this, you get that, and we'll give you this, and then you're looking for this answer to life. So what you're trying to do is distinguish, well, which one of these different men from these different religions is telling me the truth. They all tell me that they got the path to the Most High. They got him on hotline, and they all say if I come into their religion and submit myself to them, I'll find righteousness. But they can't all be right. And as I tell people all the time, when you die, despite imagine this, right? When you die, you got a man that hates black people, and then you got another man that hates white people. You got a black guy that hates white people, and then you got a white guy that hates black people. Can't stand them, detest them. Can't even be in the same room as them. Yeah, but you know what? When you die, you go to the same place. You've got people who, all sorts. Whatever you don't like, all the people with the different ideologies you don't like, the different religions, you all go to the same place. There'll be people on earth warring over religion, but when they die, they go through the same door. And there's only one thing when you go through that door. So how do you find out who's on the other side of that door? It's Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, the God of the Bible, and his son Yahushai. This is Deuteronomy 18. It says, I will raise them up a prophet from among them, from among their brethren. It says, like unto thee, and will put my words in his mouth. It says, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. And so this prophet is, I should have restarted at 17. It says, and the Lord, so all capitals. We know this is speaking of the Most High and not his son. And the Most High's name is Yahweh. He is. So it says, and it says, Yahweh said unto me, they have well spoken that which they have spoken. It says, I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren. It says, like unto thee, and will put my words in his mouth. It says, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. So the Most High is pretty much, telling Moses to tell the children of Israel that there's a prophet coming. Now this particular prophet is the Son of the Most High, Yahushua, the one they call Jesus. It says, I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren. So he's going to be of our nation. He's speaking to the children of Israel. It's like unto thee, and I will put my words in his mouth. So from this particular prophet, you can get the message of the Most High. And so who was that? That's Yahushua. He came with the message. He had disciples, and the disciples became apostles, which means sent away. They went out, they preached this word, and here we are today. And it says, and it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, says, I will require it of him. So even the people that, put Yahushua on the cross, those that went against the apostles, the prophets, ultimately they were all put to death, apart from John on the Isle of Patmos, who was kept alive so he could write the book of Revelation, but he was still on a prison island, on a working, prison island where they have to work. So it says, and it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, says, I will require it of him. It says, but the prophet which shall presume to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or that shall speak in the name of other gods, says, even that prophet shall die. So somebody's got to die, because there's many people who claim to speak in the Most High's name. Some of them give you the true name of the Most High, but they haven't been sent by the Most High. Some of them give you the wrong name. They give you all these different names, but ultimately they're all prophets. It says, which shall presume to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak. It says, all that shall speak in the name of other gods, even that prophet shall die. So you don't really want to pick up the Bible and start claiming to be a prophet if you haven't been sent. It's trouble. It's trouble. So, but why do we do it? We do it because we have a message. It says, and if thou shalt say in thy heart, and so this is to you, the person that comes, learns about this truth. How do you know that, the Hebrew Israelites, or a certain section at least, because some of them, got slightly different teachings. How do we know, somewhere amongst the Hebrew Israelites, I'm going to find a true prophet? It says, and it says here, 18 and 21, if thou shalt say in thy heart, how shall we know the word which Yahweh hath not spoken? And that's the person that comes into this truth. It says, when a prophet speaketh in the name of Yahweh, if the thing follow not, nor come to pass, that is the thing which Yahweh hath not spoken. It says, but the prophet has spoken it presumptuously, thou shalt not be afraid of him. So there's your answer. How do you know? When you're speaking to a man, he claims to be a man of the Most High, which is ultimately a prophet. He's speaking in the Most High's name. He's breaking down his scriptures. So how do you know? How do you know who's and the Most High gave you the answer. He gave you the answer as clear as day. When a prophet speaketh in the name of Yahweh, if the thing follow not, nor come to pass, that is the thing which Yahweh have not spoken. So you have Yahweh Shai, he's that prophet that was raised up. We have these latter days. He told the disciples asked, how will we know when the end is coming? And the disciples, he pretty much asked Yahweh Shai, how do we know when the end's coming? He said, don't worry, I'll send the Holy Spirit and you'll know about it. But that was 2,000 years ago. You see, they understood reincarnation, which is a biblical concept, which again can be proved through the scriptures. They understood it. So they understood that they'd have to be reincarnated so many times till they're back here in this time to see the return of Yahweh Shai. So they asked, how will we know? He said, I'll send the Spirit. So the Spirit is out here, and that's what we're telling you. The Spirit is out here. It's going to latch onto a prophet. And now you ask the question, if I say in thy heart, how shall we know the word which Yahweh have not spoken? I want to know who's not speaking in the Most High's name and who is. It says, when a prophet speaketh in the name of Yahweh, if the thing follow not, nor come to pass, that is the thing which Yahweh have not spoken. So when the prophet speaks in the name of Yahweh, it says, if the thing does follow, so you're going to stick a mirror to it. If the thing does follow and does come to pass, that is the thing which Yahweh have spoken. Because he's telling you, you say, look, if this man speaks in my name and he says this and that's going to happen and it don't happen, that's not my guy. So what he's telling you is, my guy is the one who speaks in my name and he says what I'm going to do and you'll see me do it because I told him I'm going to do it. And that's what we're telling you. If you've been watching this channel, we do it all the time. We've told you Donald Trump's the last president of America. We told you things are going to be escalating over the course of the last couple of years. You see things escalating. We've been speaking of Jacob's trouble from a year ago. And here we are today. And the whole situation that we described a year ago has completely escalated into another level today, where we stand today, with ICE, its immigration problems, so on and so forth. I spoke of it before. You had last October, you had a flare-up between Iran and the small hats. And then I spoke of hang on, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. It says, for when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with a child, then they shall not escape. So I've told you that this peace and safety is Donald Trump, make America great again. All the governments are doing that. They build Britain back because they've let it crumble. They've let the borders down. They've put out the propaganda. They've got the people wound up. They've got everybody upset. So that gives them the reason to say peace and safety. I keep saying it, these are not elections, they're selections. They pick the prime minister to cause a problem, then they pick the next one to fix it. And these presidents, prime ministers, they're simply just area managers. It says, then sudden destruction cometh upon them. So as soon as that Make America Great, he got voted in, what we're talking last November, he came in to January, and we said, look, from January, it's going to start to get peak, because then peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them. And that's why I also explained, in October, you had a flare-up with the small hats in Iran. Then we waited 9 months, as long as it takes a woman to have the child. And after the 9 months, we had another flare-up with Iran and the small hats. So in that time, Trump's come into power. Trump is Nero, the persecutor of the Israelites, reincarnated 2,000 years later, and he's here. And then he set up ICE. He's persecuting the Israelites, the northern tribe, the southern tribe. And this is just the start of Jacob's trouble. But meanwhile, while he's doing that, you've got this contractions of World War III. You've had October, and then you had it in June. And I said, the next one is not going to be 9 months. It's going to be less. It could be 8 months or less. So, you're looking at around March or February. So that's where we're at today. Prophecy is moving thick and fast. You've got contractions of World War III on one hand, but you've got the beginning of sorrows, the beginning of Jacob's trouble, starting off America. And you've got, like I say, all these different problems around the world. It's all part of it. You've had they had a ceasefire with the small hats the other day, with the small hats and Iran, and they broke it again. The small hats broke it. They blamed Iran, and they blamed one of these proxy armies, and they pretty much started. Oh, Hamas, that's the one. They blamed Hamas, and they said no, because they did this and that, we're going to start it again. So they broke the ceasefire. See, every time, there's been articles out there. Every time there's a peace deal, the small hats do everything they can to ruin it, and that's how you know there's not going to be no peace until they actually get their war. They want their war with Iran. So you've got that happening on one hand. You've got Donald Trump, the last president, make America great again, on the other hand. The MOTB, everything's going digital, mark of the beast. And this all takes you back to Deuteronomy chapter 18. See, and it says, and if thou say in thy heart, how shall we know the word which Yahweh hath not spoken? So you want to know which word has the Most High spoken. The opposite, it says, when a prophet speaketh in the name of Yahweh, if the thing does follow and does come to pass, it says that is the thing which Yahweh have spoken. So we're telling you, and you're seeing it. That's how you know we got the truth. The bottom line, no other religion, no other person calling on any other false god can do that. Only the true prophets of Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai, who are back here today, reincarnated. We just don't know who they are. But if your eyes are open, then you can work it out. So I'm going to leave it right there. I hope that was edifying. Until next time, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim, Rakat, Kwadash. Until next time, Shalom.